Bonjour, podheads. Welcome back for another episode of Over My Dead Pod. I'm Kylie Colwell.
This is Kate Carter.
And I'm Holly Spear.
Want the listeners to know I asked if I should say bonjour, and they said yes. And after I did it, they both laughed.
Yeah. But tell them why you said it.
Because we're talking about a French case today. We're going overseas, you guys. This one is full of evidence and yet full of many conspiracies. Let's have a little conspiracy episode for you guys today.
I do love a good conspiracy.
I think you'll like this one.
Is this one unsolved? Don't answer that question. Am I going to go down a rabbit hole?
I believe so.
Damn it. Okay.
It's April 13th, 2011, and neighbors in Nantes, France are getting concerned. A family on the street hasn't been seen in more than a week. The family is made up of the two parents and their four children. The house is usually hustling and bustling. They're all involved in the community, but the house is quiet. The shutters had been closed, and one of the family cars had been parked in the driveway and hadn't moved. The other family car hasn't been seen at all. The two Labrador retrievers, who had been heard barking and howling a few days ago, have been noticeably quiet, and no one has been seen walking them. Based on these concerns, police went to the house at 55 Boulevard Robert Schumann and knocked on the door, but there was no answer. France is a bit different than America, and police were able to use a locksmith to get inside and look around, but nothing seemed too strange. No one was there, the bedding had been removed, but that was it. The police left and tried to get into contact with the family through other means, but ended up coming back to the house on the 18th, 19th, and 20th, each time looking around and not finding anything. That was until they returned on the 21st and looked under the patio in the back of the house. Buried under the dirt were two pits. In one of the pits was a body, wrapped in bedding and stuffed into a large trash bag bound with tape. In the other pit, there were four more bodies, just the same. And in this pit were also the family's two Labradors. This is the story of the Dupont de Ligonnes murders.
But
Okay.
not the dogs. You didn't have to kill the dogs, okay?
Sorry, but it adds to the sadness of the story, so I had to put it in.
I get it.
So with that, let's talk about the Dupont de Ligonnes family, starting with patriarch Xavier. It's spelt like Xavier. Xavier comes from an aristocratic family in Versailles. Now they don't have any actual title or power since France famously got rid of all of that. But the family name and lineage is still a bit of a bragging right, kind of holds weight in society. Xavier was known to be very proud of his aristocratic lineage. He wanted to live up to the name. He had several businesses. He was a salesman. Javier put on this front that he was very successful in these ventures, but we'll talk more about it later because it didn't seem to be going as well as he was saying. Friends and family were a little concerned when Javier married Agnes Hodinger in 1992 because she wasn't from a big name family. She was also deeply religious and worked at a Catholic school, something Javier never seemed to be interested in. She also had a child from a previous relationship, which was a bit taboo. Agnes and Javier actually started dating in the 80s, and Javier left the relationship to go travel. When he got back, Agnes was pregnant, and Javier didn't seem to care. He was like, I want to be with you, we'll get married, and I'll raise your kid as my own. And that's what he did. Arthur Nicholas was born on July 7th, 1990, and he took Javier's last name. At the time of this story, he was only 20 and was studying for a technical diploma in IT at a private college about an hour away from the family home. Between studying, Arthur worked as a waiter at a pizzeria in his hometown. 2 years after Arthur was born, his family welcomed their second son, Thomas. And at this time, he was 18 and studying at a Catholic university in Angers. 2 more years later, Anne was born. She was in the 11th grade and studying science. Anne was described as being very religious, just like her mother. The youngest was Benoit at 13. Not much is known about Benoit, but the thing that kept coming up in my research was that he was an altar boy at the local church the family attended. On the outside, the family seemed to be picture perfect, successful husband and wife, smart children who attended church regularly. All of their friends and neighbors described the family as well known, well respected, and deeply involved in their community. But like I said earlier, and like every other case, there is always trouble going on in the home. Javier's several businesses weren't doing so hot. The exact type of business isn't super clear. All I know is that he opened several different businesses. He would hire people for them and then quickly lay them off when he couldn't keep the doors open. At one point in 2003, Javier opened a new company based out of Miami, Florida, and the family decided, hey, let's try out the American dream. Maybe we would be more financially stable over there. Well, that didn't work out either. After draining the entire savings account to move to Florida and get started, the family had to return to France. One of Javier's friends told reporters that Javier was vain. He didn't want his family, and especially others, to know he was out of money. He thought he had a break, though. In January of 2011, Javier's dad, Hubert, passed away. Javier went trotting down to his parents' house to collect his inheritance, but there was nothing. Turns out Hubert was also having money troubles, and the only thing Javier inherited was his dad's rifle, foreshadowing.
Yes, that's also not a good look.
On February 2nd, 2011, Javier obtained his firearms license. Now, in France, it's a bit more complicated than it is here, probably for the best. France requires the person to be registered at a shooting range and attend a certain amount of shooting and gun safety lessons with a licensed instructor. The person also has to obtain a medical certificate, which states they are mentally and physically capable of owning a firearm. Javier began taking his lessons, and on March 12th, he bought bullets and a silencer. He also began taking his sons Thomas and Benoit to the shooting range for practice. A receipt found inside the house shows that either on March 23rd or the 30th, Javier bought a roll of trash bags, plastic paving slabs, a shovel, and a hoe from a DIY store that was a 3.5 hour drive from the family home.
He at least was trying to cover up a little bit.
But he kept the receipt and left it
Oh,
in the house.
no, no, never mind. Never mind. Also, hot take, maybe not a hot take, I don't know. You shouldn't be able to buy silencers.
They are legal in 42 states. So they are legal in France if you have a license. I don't really see a reason for having them that's not nefarious, but still, to everyone but Javier, everything seemed fine and normal. The first inkling that something was up came on April 1st. That day, the oldest son, Arthur, left his college to drive back to the pizzeria in his hometown to pick up his paycheck. He always picked up his check on the first, without fail, but his boss noticed he didn't show up this time. Arthur's classmates also noticed he never returned back to the school. The next day, evidence will show that Javier purchased 4 bags of lime from 4 different stores in town. Everyone appeared to be live and well on April 3rd. That morning, a neighbor spotted Agnes and a bit later saw Javier putting large bags into his car. That evening, Javier, Agnes, Arthur, Anne, and Benoit went to the movies and out for dinner in town. At 10:37 p.m., Javier called his sister Christine and left a voicemail just talking about his day, but ending on a weird note. And this is what he said. Quote, "We spent our Sunday evening in the cinema together, then in a restaurant, and we've just got back. I'm just calling to ask if it's too late to speak to you on the phone, and now I see it's gone to voicemail. But I was surprised. You spoke to me about Bertram, who's getting ready for his flight, huh? But I thought he'd only just arrived, so I was a bit surprised. Anyway, sending you my love. If it's not too late, call me back or send me a text and I'll call you. Okay, I'm going to put the kids to bed. Say hi to everyone. See you soon. Maybe." End quote.
Well, I mean, knowing what's about to happen, yes, you can dig into that. But the whole like see you soon, maybe kind of thing. I mean, I don't know. See you soon, maybe. I don't know when I'll see you. I don't know. I don't know.
That's true. With what we know,
Agreed.
it's weird. Yeah. Next morning, Anne and Benoit didn't show up to school. A few articles I read said it was because they were sick, so I'm assuming Javier called the school to tell them that. But their friends at school started texting them. I'm not sure if it was just like a hey, checking in to see how you're feeling, or if the friends had a weird feeling, but they never got a response from either Anne or Benoit. Javier did finally get a hold of his sister Christine. They talked for about 30 minutes on the phone, and Christine said everything seemed normal. After this call, he called Agnes's boss and told him that Agnes wasn't going to be able to come into work that day because she had gastroenteritis. 2 days later, Javier told her boss that she was in the hospital and wouldn't be able to be contacted. Before this, though, on the 4th, Javier met up with his second eldest son, Thomas, for dinner in Avril. They arrived around 9 p.m., ate and drank, but the waiters would later say that the two barely spoke during the meal and they left separately. On the morning of the 5th, A bailiff came to the house to recover a 20,000 euro debt, and no one answered the door, which isn't that weird. If someone was coming to collect 20,000 from me, I would not answer the door
Oh,
either.
not home. Just missed me.
But that same morning, two different people reported seeing Agnes outside of the house, a neighbor and an employee of a hair salon right across the street. These reports of seeing Agnes will come up in some controversy and conspiracy later, but the only confirmed spotting of one of the family members being alive was Thomas, who was at his friend's house that day in Angers. He was hanging out, studying, practicing music, and was planning on spending the night at his friend's. But he got a call from his dad saying he needed to come home right away because his mom was in a bicycle accident. Thomas quickly ate dinner with his friend and then got on a train home around 10 p.m. Neighbors would report that that night the family's two dogs could be heard howling, but never again after that. On the 6th, when Thomas didn't return back to school, his friends texted him. He responded saying he wasn't going to class because he was really ill. He also abruptly ended the conversation by saying he didn't have a phone charger and his dad was going to go get him one, but then he stopped responding. That night, Arthur's girlfriend showed up at the house after not being able to get a hold of him. She said the lights were on inside, but no one answered the door. The dogs also didn't bark when she knocked, like they usually did. The next morning, the 7th, a neighbor spotted Xavier making several trips with even more large bags in his car. So the neighbors in the story, luckily, are very nosy and they are keeping tabs on this family. Another neighbor reported that that same day he spoke to Agnes, who was out walking one of the dogs. He said he remembers this distinctly because he had to cut their conversation short to pick up his kid from the babysitter, which he did at the same time every Thursday. A saleswoman and friend of Agnes also reported that Agnes came into her store either on the 7th or the 8th. But after this, there are no reports of seeing Agnes, Arthur, Thomas, Anne, or Benoit.
Putting this on the record, if you cannot contact me and you come to my house and my dogs do not bark, something is wrong.
So there's no reports of seeing any of the other family members, but Xavier, however, has a large trail of crumbs showing his movements. On the 8th, he logged onto a Catholic forum, and police were able to see he did so from the family computer in the home. He also sent an email to his brother-in-law, Bertram, saying, quote, "Everything's fine, Bertram. You'll hear more detailed news soon through Christine. Bye for now. All the best, Xavier." End quote. Xavier would also send similar emails to his mother, Genevieve, and sister Christine, who is the one married to Bertram. Things were quiet for 2 days until the 11th when everyone started receiving letters. Anne and Benoit's school got a letter from Xavier saying his two kids were leaving the school because the family had to move to Australia abruptly due to, quote, "urgent professional changes," end quote. Agnes's work got a similar letter, but this one was signed by Agnes. Her boss attempted to call her about the matter, but there was no answer. 9 different people in Xavier's family also got a letter, and the story was quite different in this one. The entire letter is online. I'll link it, but it's pretty long, so I'll give you the quick summary. In short, Xavier said that he had been working for the United States DEA, and the family had to move to the US to join the Witness Protection Program. He explained that through his company in Miami, he was put into contact with the DEA to get information on drug traffickers and money laundering schemes in French nightclubs. But his cover was blown, and they have to go into hiding throughout the duration of the trial, which who knows how long that would take. Xavier said it could be years, and just to tell everyone that the family moved to Australia for work. As we all know, they were not in Australia. That night, Xavier checked into a hotel in the south of France, paying with his credit card. The next day, he checked into another hotel under a fake name, Mr. Laurent Xavier, but he also paid for this with his own credit card, which kind of defeats the purpose of using a fake name. On the 13th was when neighbors called the police, who showed up at the house for the first time. Meanwhile, Xavier checked into another hotel in Bar, a town he had lived in the 80s. A former girlfriend from back in the day said he called her that evening, but she said the two didn't meet up. The next morning, Xavier withdrew 30 euros from an ATM nearby and stayed the night at a different hotel. There is surveillance footage of him there, but this would be the very last confirmed sighting of him. He checked out on the 15th, and instead of getting in his car, he abandoned the car there and walked off. To where? No one knows. Xavier Dupont de Ligonnes is still missing to this day.
Is he really?
Mm-hmm. So let's get into the investigation, starting with the autopsies of Agnes, Arthur, Thomas, Anne, and Benoit. The autopsy showed that all but one victim had been drugged and shot with a .22 long rifle in the head as they were sleeping. This is the same type of gun that Xavier inherited from his dad. Fun fact, there was no foreign DNA or fingerprints on any of the bodies. The only victim with no drugs found in their system was wife Agnes. Her sleep apnea machine did provide some data, and it showed it stopped suddenly at 3 a.m. on April 4th. Investigators believe that Agnes, Arthur, and Benoit were murdered the night of the 3rd or early morning hours of the 4th, based on this and the spotting of them at the restaurant and movies that night. They also believe Thomas was murdered on the 5th after his dad told him to quickly get home on the train. It is assumed that Xavier was the one texting Thomas's friends the next day, saying he was sick and wouldn't make it to class, and that Thomas was killed on a different day because his body was in a different pit. So there was one pit with Thomas, and then everyone else was in a separate pit. I hinted at it earlier, but there is a lot of controversy and conspiracy about the date of the murders. To this day, all these neighbors and friends are very adamant that they saw Agnes on the 5th, 7th, and possibly the 8th. We have the neighbor seeing her outside on the 5th and the 7th, the hair salon employee seeing her at the same time on the 5th, a different neighbor talking to her on the 7th, and the saleswoman saying she came into the store on the 7th or the 8th. Now, they could be wrong, could have gotten the dates mixed up, but investigators could also be wrong. One theory I saw online was that maybe Xavier was holding his family hostage in the house for a few days before murdering them, but then it doesn't make sense as to why Agnes would be allowed to go out and walk the dog or pop into a store.
Right.
Also, like the letters or her not showing up to work, people not being able to get into contact with them, but the family also went out to eat and to the movies.
Yeah, that doesn't really make any sense.
It does not. I think the only thing investigators are leaning on for the date of the murders is Agnes's sleep apnea machine, and they're not really giving any validity to these sightings. The bodies of Agnes, Arthur, Thomas, Anne, and Benoit were cremated and buried in Agnes's hometown on the 30th, following a very large public funeral at the family's church, St. Felix. We'll get back to the autopsy and funeral later when we discuss some theories, but for now, let's look into what the police are looking at. They found Xavier's car at that hotel the same day they found the bodies, but no clues were found inside. With no physical clues, police started looking into Xavier's digital footprint. They found that online Catholic forum that Xavier had an account on. Well, had because he ended up being banned for being aggressive in the comments. He was a little troll on there.
Oh.
I couldn't find out exactly what he said on there, but police did say he asked a lot of questions about sacrifice. Police also reached out to Xavier's friends, who, by the way, said Xavier wasn't religious whatsoever, and he had never set foot in a church. So that's weird.
Yeah.
The friends did say that in the months before his disappearance, he started to contact a bunch of old friends and old girlfriends. One of the girlfriends, Claudia, was high on the list of people to speak to. She was a German woman who they said Xavier almost married. Not sure what that means, but it seems like she was important to him. But no one has ever been able to find this Claudia lady. German television shows even ran segments looking for witnesses and Claudia and even Xavier, but nothing fruitful came from this.
Is she real?
Who knows, honestly, at this point.
Like, that's weird.
The investigation also reached all the way to the US. Like I said earlier, Xavier had started a company back in Miami in the day. Well, as it turns out, the advisor for this company is a shady dude. His name is Gerard Corona, and he specializes in helping foreigners open bank accounts in the US and abroad and being able to withdraw and deposit money without leaving a trace.
Yep, sounds about right.
Quickly, the public and police realized Xavier was on the run, and he likely had help. They just had to find him. Only a day after the bodies were discovered, Interpol issued a blue notice, which is an alert for law enforcement to, quote, to collect additional information about a person's identity, location, or activities in relation to a criminal investigation, end quote. Basically, their version of like a person of interest that police need to talk to. On the 29th, police searched Var, the town where Javier was last seen, at that hotel. They searched 40 caves in a 10-mile radius in another town, lead mines and forest in another. They searched for 7 years without a trace, and that was until a credible tip came in. Javier was spotted at a monastery in a small village near where he was last seen, and he was disguising himself as a monk. So on January 9th, 2018, police raided St. Desert Monastery, but there was an issue. I think this is hilarious. The monks had taken a vow of silence and would not speak to the police. So with no help, they searched the property for over 2 hours and they found him. Well, it wasn't Javier. It was a monk that looked like Javier. And police say they confirmed it was not him, but he didn't speak to them. So who knows?
Oh, that's interesting.
There were a few other close calls, namely 2 different bodies being found. In June of 2013, a body was found 12 miles from where Javier was last seen. The autopsy couldn't immediately exclude Javier. Later, the prosecutor had a weird thing to say about the identity of the body. Let me know what you think about this. They said, quote, "At this moment in time, it is not the body of Xavier Dupont de Ligonnes," end quote. Like, it's not him right now, but maybe
At
it
this
will be,
time?
maybe in the future. What does that mean?
Was it said in French or is it translated?
It was translated from French to English.
There's a good chance that it maybe just translated weird.
That is a good point to raise.
Yep.
Another body was found on April 28th, 2015, in the woods nearby. Police also located what they called a survival camp, like the person had been living out there for a bit. They found an empty wallet, lighter, glasses, sleeping bag, a magazine from 2010, and a bill from 2011. The male body had a medical pin in the forearm bone, which Javier did not have, but police were quick to run to the press to say it wasn't impossible for Javier to have had medical work done after disappearing. Unfortunately, only a few days later, DNA excluded Javier as the person found, but the identity of their remains is still unknown to this day as well. At this point in the investigation, the police are pretty certain that Javier had committed suicide somewhere remote. It's the typical family annihilator: eliminate the whole family and then yourself, so they would never know the secrets you were covering up. But when credible tips would come in with a potential sighting of Javier, the police would investigate. In July of 2015, a journalist in Nantes received an envelope, and inside was a photo. It was a photo of Arthur and Benoit sitting at the kitchen table. On the back of the picture was a handwritten note saying, quote, "I'm still alive," end quote. This photo was handed over, but no one knows where it came from. The next year, CCTV in a casino caught a man that looked an awful lot like Javier. Police quickly descended onto the area and searched for this man. Whether he was Javier or not, police never found him. The most credible tip came on October 11th, 2019, straight from Interpol. They called up the police in France and said, "Hey, this guy just booked a flight from Paris to Glasgow using the name on a passport that was reported stolen. It could be your guy. His flight is on the 12th, so you better be standing at the gate." I think the photo in the passport could have passed for Javier. Like if Javier were to use the stolen passport, this would be a good option for him. So that's why they immediately thought of him. So the French police headed to the airport and stalked out the gate on the 12th, but the guy never showed up because he had actually changed his flight last minute and left the day before, right after Interpol had called.
How was he not flagged at the airport? That's crazy.
Think they'd call TSA?
That's a security measure for sure they fucked up on.
But luckily, the police in Glasgow, Scotland had also been informed and they arrested the man once he landed. France was like, "Okay, sweet, send over his fingerprints, photos, we need confirmation." And then Scotland refused to do so. The media went fucking nuts. They immediately started releasing articles saying Javier had been captured in Scotland. He's under arrest. They finally caught him. But they jumped the gun because it wasn't Javier. And if you Google this case, you search his name, those articles will still pop up saying that he was arrested in Scotland. But they are not true. Turns out it was a different man who had reported his passport stolen in 2014. He got a new one, had been using it, but in the computer system, it was still showing up as stolen and that it hadn't been replaced. So I'm not sure why Scotland wouldn't immediately say something.
Right.
But okay. But that was the last big thing in this case. Over 900 sightings of Javier have been reported and looked into. And here we are in 2025 with no clear answers as to where he is. Which brings me to the fun part, the theories. We'll start with the most likely theory and what investigators believe, and that is that Javier committed suicide. His body has just not yet been found. The area Javier was last seen in is full of vast forest and caves. And like I said earlier, it is typical for a family annihilator to commit suicide after taking out their entire family. What isn't typical is for the perpetrator to commit suicide somewhere else. Usually, this is done right then and there isn't usually an attempt to cover up anything since they would no longer be there to deal with the aftermath. There could be a few reasons why Javier didn't do this. Maybe he wanted to take his own life in a place where he viewed it as special. Maybe he wanted to deceive people for them to think he was still alive, or maybe that this whole DNA crime story was real and that they were the ones who killed his entire family. I don't know. The thing is, Javier didn't hide what he was doing all that well. He was driving around France. He was caught on CCTV. He used his own credit card, and he only used a fake name at a hotel once. It looks like he was just kind of waiting out until the discovery of his family's disappearance was imminent. In the last CCTV footage of Javier, he was seen holding a bag with what investigators say had a large, long object on the bottom, the outline of what could have been his rifle. Javier taking his own life is the most likely answer, but that doesn't stop the public from theorizing other options. And this brings us to what Javier's family thinks, which I personally think is batshit crazy. Buckle in. Javier's sister Christine and her husband Bertram are leading the charge in these other theories, and they even have a blog and a book about this. And short version, they believe that the entire family is in fact in witness protection in America, and the bodies under the porch were not them, they're decoys.
Oh,
Oh, why do they think that?
there's
Scared to even-
DNA though.
They have counterpoints to the DNA. We'll get into it.
Okay.
They say the police and media are under the rule of America's law enforcement and have been told to leak information to make it look like they all died. They point to emails that Javier sent to two friends in July of 2010 saying, quote, "So I hope that, even after a police investigation, my parents, brothers, and sisters will never be led to believe that I intentionally caused these accidents, even if the evidence is strong." End quote. Now, a smart person would obviously assume that Javier is just starting to lay out his scheme and bolster its authenticity. And an even smarter person would be like, hey, what is this email about when I received it?
Right.
But here we are. Christina and Bertram also point out that Javier was very proud of his aristocratic lineage. He wouldn't have murdered his own children. Personally, that doesn't mean anything to me. People murder people they love all the time. Those are the weird points, but they do have some good points. The first being that under the patio where everyone was buried is only 4 feet tall, meaning the killer would have had to dig these pits on their hands and knees. It would have also been nearly impossible to use a shovel or hoe to dig, since the handles, wouldn't fit. Not sure how true this is, but Christina and Bertram say there were no skin cells, blood, or DNA found under the patio deck, not from the victims or from the killer hitting their head while down there. They also said Javier had neck and back problems, and he wouldn't have been physically capable of doing all of this. A weird thing they did point out is that there was no displaced dirt in the backyard. The killer dug up 5 tons of dirt under the patio, put the bodies there, and put every last little piece of dirt back perfectly to the point where no one noticed when they were walking in that backyard.
Yeah, but he bought all the supplies, didn't he?
Yeah.
So like, because it's his family talking, I understand to an extent because sometimes you can just really believe your family member no matter what they do, you know. Now I do get like because you were sitting here and I was trying to measure in my head like 4 feet under a deck. I get it. That would be really hard to dig holes and stuff. It's possible.
That's an issue, but I don't feel like that's rules him out for me at all.
Like somebody had to do it, you know. It doesn't mean it's not just and him having back problems. I got back problems. If I'm motivated, I'm gonna do something.
Good point.
Yeah.
But I have another weird point in that there was no blood found in the home from any of the victims or Javier. So he shot them in the head while they slept in the bed. There was zero blood splatter found. Somehow, I mean, Javier's no professional hitman or professional cleaner.
No, and the first thing I thought was like, okay, he prepped the scene.
It's like in their drug state, he was able to just plastic wrap like the entire room and
The Dexter thing.
got rid of them. I don't know.
There's two ways. He's either really, really smart, like beyond, like really smart and calculated, or they really did get sent to the US for witness protection. But I don't know why the US would be like, oh, we need you to buy all this shit to make it look like you killed them.
Yeah, like why would you want to like ruin your witness's reputation in their home country?
Right.
If they were going to be put into witness protection, why would he be? Wouldn't it be easier to just say that that they
Died.
found him, he killed himself?
Right.
I always thought they'd just do the typical, oh, whole family died in a car crash.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a
Mhm.
murder thing.
Yeah, it's
A
weird.
fire, a house fire, or whatever.
Like if I was going to put the family in witness protection, I'd be like, oh, he killed his family and then killed himself. End of story. Like I wouldn't. I feel like it's
Drag it on.
a big, yeah.
My whole thing with him is though, like the crime scene itself and the cleanup and all
Yeah.
the prep is very smart, but he's just running around town using his credit card. Like, is he stupid in that way, or is he doing that on purpose?
I have a weird feeling that he was really smart. Like, I think he knew in the end he wasn't going to be caught. I'm a little geeked out though about like his ex-girlfriend also being missing and nobody's been able to find her. Like, did they run off together? Was there an affair thing happening? Or I truly don't think he killed his family and then went and killed himself.
Yeah, I feel like I don't believe he's dead until I see evidence that he is. Because there's a
Yeah,
lot of times that family annihilators do kill their family and then kill themselves. But then there's a lot of times where they kill their families and then they don't kill themselves.
right.
They go on the run with
I
an
am
ex-girlfriend.
interested on the ex-girlfriend
Yeah.
thing. That's kind of threw me for a loop though.
I gotta find her.
Mm-hmm.
So Javier's mom, Genevieve, his sister Christine, and brother-in-law Bertram hired an attorney to help them out with this theory, and this is what he had to say about the investigation. Quote, we don't even know when the victims were killed. The autopsy points to death between 10 and 21 days before their discovery. Such imprecision is truly astonishing. In reality, nothing is certain in this affair, other than the fact that some bodies were found at 55 Boulevard Robert Schumann. Investigations were carried out, but all that they have allowed us to ascertain is that the bodies share the same DNA. No analysis has compared this common DNA with that of Agnes Hodanger. Furthermore, my client confirms that the body's heights and weights do not correspond to the known dimensions of the family members. In my opinion, this constitutes negligence during the autopsy. But the autopsy allows Christine and Genevieve to step into the breach. What I also know is that one man alone cannot dig that hole under the patio, even a man blinded by rage and hatred. 2.5 cubic meters of earth was displaced. The affair is based on the idea that Xavier Dupont killed his family before burying them. No other line of inquiry has been explored. I don't know who killed this family. Nothing about their lives would lead me to believe that anyone would have had it in for them to this extent. That is the conclusion of my clients. Since no one could have killed them, the fact is they are not dead. End quote.
Damn. Okay, hold on. The first thing that you said blew my mind. Let me know if this is correct. They don't know whether or not the people found under the porch are in fact the people in question. They just said that it's the same, all of them share the same DNA. They don't know for a fact. They have not that in writing.
Well, I guess because they have nothing really to compare it to. So they have all their DNA profiles and they can see that they're all related. They didn't compare the children's DNA to the mother's to show that she is the mother.
But
They
do we
didn't.
even know it's them?
That's a good point.
That's fucking weird.
I think a lot of this conspiracy could be like squashed with a thorough investigation.
Mm-hmm.
Based on what we have, it is a little bit murky. So Xavier Dupont de Ligonnes is considered the prime suspect in the murders of his wife, Agnes, and his children, Arthur, Thomas, Anne, and Benoit. An active Interpol notice is still active for his discovery, but investigators seemingly are just waiting for his body to turn up. Without confirmation on what happened to Javier, the conspiracy and mystery continues to grow. Maybe he took his own life. Maybe he's still out there, living under an alias. And that was the story of the Dupont de Ligonnès murders, also known as the Nantes Massacre.
I will be on Reddit later.
Yeah, I bet this is a peak case for a Reddit
Yeah.
thread,
Yeah.
honestly.
Didn't you say there was over 800 sightings of him?
900.
That's nuts. That's nuts.
We're going to keep an eye out for Javier, but let's jump into overtime.
So by the time this airs, it would have been Halloween already.
Ooh.
So what are you guys doing for this Halloween? It is on a Friday, which is nice.
Let me tell you about my plans. I'm going to do what I did last year. I'm going to get me a big bottle of wine.
Oh.
I'm going to put on Hocus Pocus and I'm going to hand out candy. I think I have calculated the right amount of candy this time. I overestimated last year and I had 4 bags of candy left over in the pantry.
And then you just eat it all.
That was the problem.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, are you the only one dressing up this year?
We go ham for Halloween every year, and it's always a family costume. Usually, the past few years, Kylie is also part of the family costume, but alas, she had weekend plans. It's not too late, Kylie, if you want to come. I guess I could say it since Halloween's gonna be already done.
We can insert a photo too.
Last year, Millie was the Chick-fil-A cow and Cam and I were Chick-fil-A employees, and that was a hit. The only issue with that is we were stopped by 5 million children asking if we were actual employees and were we handing out sandwiches, which would have been a great idea, but I don't have money like that.
If I were rich, my house, one, decorated like a haunted house,
Oh yeah.
two, I wouldn't be passing out candy. I'd be passing out Chick-fil-A sandwiches.
Absolutely. Like I was as soon as the first kid asked me that, I was like, genius. I could pass out maybe like 5.
What you could do is get the tray of nuggets and hand each kid one nugget.
One nugget. They have to
One
pick
nug
it
per
though.
kid.
They have to choose it so that they know I'm not poisoning them.
Some are poison, some aren't.
Luck of
Pick.
the
I was
draw.
gonna say.
Luck of the draw. Okay, so this year Millie is an Oompa Loompa. I am Violet Beauregard in a blueberry outfit. She's the one that eats the gum from Willy Wonka and turns into a blueberry. And that's because I have a belly, a pregnant belly. So I'm going to be a blueberry with a little bob, her blonde bob and stuff. And then Cam's going to be Willy Wonka circa Johnny Depp.
It's a good Willy Wonka to be.
Yes.
I like it.
Actually, I think Kylie told him to do that one because we were trying to figure out which Willy Wonka we wanted to do. And we really wanted to see Cameron in the bob hair.
The Gene Wilder Willy Wonka is a good one, but the Bob, Cameron in a Bob, I have
With
to
the
see it.
glasses.
Yes. Ollie, what are you dressing up as?
I'm dressing up as a wedding planner. I'm gonna be out in my garage directing everyone in my family that is able-bodied to do a craft. Yeah, we're gonna hand candy out from our garage as I'm working everyone's fingers to the bone.
You're gonna be running that garage like a sweatshop. I know it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, poor Daniel, my new stepdad, is just barely in this family as of like a year ago, and we're working him to the bone. So
He
yeah,
knew
that's
what
what
he
I'm
was
doing for
getting
Halloween.
into, marrying
Yeah,
Candy, okay? He knew
yeah,
yeah.
he should.
He's got to get crafty or he's gonna have to get out.
Yeah, get crafty or rethink your situation.
No.
Yeah.
What was trick-or-treating like for you guys as kids? Did you go to did you stay in your own neighborhood or did you go to another like big neighborhood?
My neighborhood was the kid neighborhood. Every house was every single house was like decor galore, every music playing, kids in the street. Like it was very obviously not how it is anymore. You could just let the kids go and not have like parents follow and stuff. And my house is on a tiny little hill. You guys have seen it. And so, and we're on the corner of streets and intersections. So we were like, we had to make it big and stuff like that. But my brother would dress up as like the Chainsaw Massacre kind of guy and would hide in bushes and scare the shit out of kids and moms and stuff like that. Like that was, but people came for that.
See, my neighborhood it wasn't big. There's only 3 streets on it, but it's the only neighborhood in the town I lived in. So everyone came to ours. We had a couple houses that went all out. Like we had one house, their entire front yard was like a haunted house. Like they put up the black tarps, like made like
Oh, that's
tunnels, had people
cool.
jumping out. And our neighbor, he would, this is very country, have a tractor and a trailer with hay bales on it, and all the little kids rode around on the trailer trick or treating. And so you rode
That's
around on a little
great.
trailer, and he always dressed up as a cow and with the udders, and in the udders was silly string.
I didn't
But
know where you were going with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be a little weird.
No, he's a normal dude.
Okay. That's cute though.
That's
I like
great.
that.
Once we got to like middle school, we're like, okay, we're too big for the cow trailer.
Yeah.
So we decided we'll go like out on our own. And I remember the very first Halloween, I went out on my own with my friends. There was a not a normal dude, a sexual predator
Oh.
in the neighborhood.
No way.
Sexual predator. And we knew about the sexual predator. So we dared my one friend Brandon to go ring his doorbell while we waited across the street in the ditch and watched. And he did not get kidnapped.
I was gonna say, is he alive?
He is alive and well.
Was the sexual predator handing out Halloween candy? Because I don't know if that's allowed.
No, and the lights were off. I think that was not allowed.
Also, does it make you I don't know, is this a weird question? Do you ever feel bad for them that like they can't do anything? Like they are known as the sex like it could have been a no, never mind. Never mind. I take it all back.
The ones that are like, oh, drunk, peeing in the alley behind a bar, they get
Like
labeled.
near a kid's like, well, I don't know if that's sexual predator, but that
But
would
they
just
get
be
labeled as like a sex offender. If your wee wee's out,
do
you know.
they for public nudity?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, see, that makes me feel bad.
That's why the system's a little flawed. There's a lot of controversy about what's considered sexual predator.
I think like more the kid stuff, and then I'm like, no, fuck you. But I don't know how you live a life after that, like getting that title, because just buying a house, rent or renting or anything.
Even people like couples that get caught doing it in public, they both get the sex offender.
In my county today, they posted it was like 8 people that all got arrested for public nudity at a beach, and it was all like older people. But it
Oh,
was apparently they had been warned multiple times.
oh, then I don't feel bad.
Yeah, no, it was something weird. I'll have to go and find it.
I don't think there are any nude beaches in Florida, are there? Because I
I
think all beaches in Florida are public.
Mom says that she thinks so.
Oh, there are
There
several.
are. Yep, there's lots actually.
Oh, she said there's lots in Greece. She just
Oh,
got
I
back
feel
from
like
Greece.
in Greece it's not even like a nude beach, it's just a thing.
Old people.
Yeah, they're all old and wrinkly and very tan. That was the whole in France, a lot of the beaches that I would go to, it's all the women were topless.
I don't see the allure to that. I don't get it.
I hate my body. I'm not doing that.
There's even when I had the best body ever, I still had body dysmorphia. I would have never have done that.
It's the people that shouldn't do it that do.
They don't give a if you go to a nudist beach and like that's your thing, like you can do that, you don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like in a good way.
Okay, well, we're all going to start working out before we hit up the beaches.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week with another case on Over My Dead Pod. Make sure you like, subscribe, leave us a comment, review, follow us on social media at Over My Dead Pod, and check out overmydeadpod.com. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Au revoir.
Bye.